Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another best of 5 series of professional StarCraft 2. And what I got for you today is a Zerg versus Zerg, and I am really excited for this one. I'll explain why that is in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started by, of course, introducing the players. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of Catalyst LE in game number 1 of this best of 5 series, and playing with the red Zerg drones. He's from Germany, easily one of the strongest up-and-coming Zerg players on the planet. He's been really impressing me in 2018 so far. We have none other than Lambo. And his opponent spawning in the top left-hand corner of the map. He's playing with the blue Zerg drones. He's from Finland. We have none other than Serral. So here's the thing, whenever people ask me, Lowko, who do you think is the current best player in StarCraft 2? It's one of those titles that continuously changes, obviously, with recent results. But I think at this point in time, at this point in StarCraft 2's history, there's really only 2 people that are really, I think, going for that title right now. It is either going to be a young South Korean pro gamer that plays Terran, who goes by the nickname of Maru. He's been smashing all of the competition over in Korea, or it is going to be none other than this Zerg player right here. It's pretty difficult to actually get any games from Serral because he doesn't really participate in a lot of online tournaments and all of the offline events that he plays in. I obviously have to watch those live because I'm a massive StarCraft 2 fanboy. But there's no denying that outside of Korea, Serral has been dominating the StarCraft 2 scene. So in case you're unfamiliar, the WCS circuit, it is like there's a bunch of different events that get put out by Blizzard during the course of the year, and then the grand finals take place over at BlizzCon in November or so. And here's the thing, so far up to this month right here, so obviously it is just the very first day actually of September that I'm recording this, but regardless, up to right now, there have been 3 events in 2018 so far for official WCS circuit events. And guess who won all 3 of them? It is indeed going to be Serral. Now, there were some players that ended up taking maps off of him, but overall, he looked so extremely dominant. It didn't really look like anyone had his number, and it really looked as if he was just simply much better than everyone else. Now, the thing about Serral is that he didn't really play very many games over in Korea. I mean, there's a lot to talk about right there. If you really want to get into it, I could probably dedicate another video to that only topic. But regardless, Serral didn't really play against a lot of the Korean players very often. However, recently, over in Korea, there was GSL versus the World, where basically they invited 8 really strong non-Koreans, and they made him go up against 8 really strong Korean players as well. And it turns out that Serral is actually the one who ended up winning that tournament as well. The man has been on absolute fire. Anyways, he got a couple Zerglings across the map right now as well. It looks like they actually were snuck out. Lambo not quite ready for this one right here. And I think, yeah, that may very well force the cancel on that 3rd hatchery. Nicely done there by Serral, getting himself a slight little advantage. And I think that's kind of like the theme of Serral's play in general. He doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. It's very difficult to beat a Zerg player who does not overmake drones. It's very difficult to make a Zerg player who does not like miss scouting information. It's very difficult to get any damage done. And while occasionally he does slip up, believe it or not, he is human, there's no denying he's extremely strong right now. Now, a lot of Zerglings were made right here by Lambo. Looks like he's going to be using those defensively as well. 3rd hatchery, of course, already been taken here by Serral. Couple links now actually moving across by Lambo. Lambo is going to force the blue Zerglings that were out by his front door back home once again as well. But there's going to be a little bit of micro shenanigans right now. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Obviously, that queen is going to be very helpful when it comes to picking off these Zerglings and these Banelings. The Banelings, of course, can deal a huge amount of damage. Now, Serral's strongest matchup is usually ZVZ. There's no denying he's really good at playing with the Lings and the Banes, and at this level of play, I would be very surprised if either player really, runs a big clump of Zerglings into their opposing Banelings. Anyways, Serral at GSL vs. the World ended up playing a best of 1 against Maru as well. A lot of people were very excited for that one, including myself, and it was actually Serral who ended up winning that match. Now, it was obviously only a single game, only a best of 1, so it's hard to say if he's actually the best player on the planet right now. I actually personally think that Serral is probably just a little bit below Maru, but it's extremely hard to say. These players are phenomenal. Alrighty, so far, Very good game, though, by both players. Obviously, besides the fact that the third base went down... Ooh, gotta be careful. Besides the fact that the third base went down, this has been very, very solid for Lambo as well. He now also brought a queen out on the map just to start poking away at whatever he can find. Nicely done so far, but you can really see the zoning right here, right? Both players having those overlords in place to really figure out what is going on. A couple of banelings there, trading against other banelings. Queen on the left-hand side, though, at the same point as well, taking a lot of damage. One baneling there for Serral will just barely survive for a little while longer, but I would be very surprised if any critical damage does get dealt. There's still 2 banelings remaining here for Lambo. He's going to be able to zone Serral's Zerglings away. And the question is, when will both players start transitioning? It looks like the Roach Warren has already finished up here for Serral. He's got that +1 missile coming up, as well as the Lair upgrade. So Lair, of course, will give him a whole new a range of units if he wants to, or array of units, rather, if he wants to. Obviously, also Roach Speed is going to be very important to try and get that out as soon as possible, because the mid game is always going to be dominated by roaches. We have been seeing some Yuta play once again as of late. A couple of banelings trying to get some value there, but the Queen micro is on point. Wonderfully done. Although a couple of Zerglings there by Lambo. Sneaky, sneaky Lambo. Getting the links inside of that main base without them getting spotted, and they're going to actually rally towards the natural. Now, Serral, though, he might accidentally just happen upon these. Oh my god, Serral, you're so good. It's these little moves, okay? Did you see that? Why the heck would he send Zerglings in there? He was just double checking. But obviously, if you do so 1,000 times, right, in 1,000 games, you're gonna catch units every once in a while. So well done there. That could have actually been the end of the game. Nice connections there once again by our player in blue. He's now transitioning towards roaches as well. You can immediately see that supply count skyrocket. He's actually also got a superior economy, so while this is all going on, he's now going to transition towards a 4th hatchery already. Sitting at 64 workers is Serral. And Lambo, it looks like so far, he's just simply trying to hold on. He's got the double upgrades going, which definitely will be a nice little advantage once they do finish up their research. But there's no denying this is still going to be a difficult one for him to really claw back into. He's not going to be able to really secure a 4th base right now with this many Zerglings roaming the map. Nice little play there, though. Serral always attempts a lot of run-bys and whatnot as well. If you remember some of the games that I casted recently of Raynor, basically Serral plays very similar to Raynor. I guess Raynor plays very similar to Serral, in the sense that they go for a lot of run-bys, except Serral does it better. Serral basically just does everything a little bit better. Now, a couple of banelings actually apparently managed to make their way into that mineral line. It's a couple of drones there that ended up dying. Obviously, these Zerglings aren't that big of a deal, but at the same time, in the bottom left-hand corner, the majority of those links were still remaining, and they forced the council there on the 4th hatchery. Lambo, though, got a couple Zerglings over here in the bottom right-hand corner as well. He could have actually forced a kill there, I think, on that 3rd, or on the 4th rather, but a couple of roaches are now coming up for the rescue here as well. And I think that since that response was just a little bit later, the 4th base will indeed survive. It's these little things that add up very quickly over time. Well, there we go. Serral now finally has the upgrades that he's looking for. +2/+1, though, just about to finish up here for Lambo. He's going to have a really strong upgrade lead once they finish up. This is about 30 seconds or so from finishing, so there's still a little bit of time. Serral is going to be able to scout this one out right now as well. He notices that there are still a lot of units available. Once again, a couple of Zerglings making their way towards that 4th hatchery location. Getting the kill on it at the same time, though. The Roach armies are now clashing. +1, +2, actually, oh my god, +2 was actually contaminated there. Nicely done as well by Serral, but it does look like the main fight is going in favor of Lambo so far. Lambo forcing his opponent back. He is going to obviously finish up that +2 missile upgrade in just a little bit. At this point, it is +1/+1 for the player in red versus only +1 here for Serral. So that's really nicely done. Nice little advantage. Couple of drones once again falling here at the 3rd base with the Zerglings coming in with the run-by once more. But while this is all going on, right, this is where the real advantage is. Serral's got himself a 4th base, and he's been actively denying the 4th of his opponent. That effectively makes this push here from Lambo an all-in. He's got a nice upgrade lead. He's got a lot of units here as well. Army-wise, I guess he's at a slight disadvantage, but the upgrades easily change the tide of battle. Serral, though, just about to finish up +2. He actually just finished it before what looks to be the next engagement, and it looks like Serral is going to jump on his opportunity. Lambo desperately trying to land a couple of those corrosive biles as well. Roaches microing as best as they can to try and get that concave going. And Serral, in an extremely clean game number 1, obtains the victory. Alrighty, so that brings us to Asset Plant LE for game number 2 of this series. So I feel like I've fanboyed enough about Serral, right? Let's just say that the man is very good. Now let's talk a little bit more about Lambo. Because Lambo is one of those players that a lot of people definitely know of, but he hasn't necessarily won a premier event yet. I would say I know he's been around since like 2015 or so, at the very least in like the professional StarCraft scene. But I actually met him late last year at WESG in Barcelona. Really nice guy, definitely a very strong Zerg player. And while at the time he didn't have a great showing at Barcelona, he's been doing very well ever since. In 2018 so far, he's got a couple of 3rd, 4th places. I remember him going 3rd place at Home Story Cup very recently. He also ended up getting a shared 3rd, 4th place over at WCS Austin. I believe this was back in June. Maybe it was in May, actually. I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, yeah, he's been showing some extremely good games. And getting 3rd, 4th at an official WCS circuit event is really, really impressive. Now, he actually ended up going down in that event as well. I still remember the series. 3-1 to, guess what? Indeed, Serral. So he's definitely got a tough road ahead of him, but there's no denying that Lambo is one of those players. You definitely want to remember his name, because I would not be surprised if he smashes a bunch of tournaments within like a year or so. Like, a lot of these players still have a lot of room to, I guess, grow and a lot of room to mature. When you watch someone like Serral play, everything is just kind of as good as it gets right now. Right? Like, there's a bunch of Korean players, for example, like Rogue, or for example, like Dark, or for example, like Su, who look very strong, but Serral just looks a little bit, like just more flushed out, like more refined. I guess that's the correct word. And it's hard to see and really pinpoint why that is, but everything just looks really solid. For example, if you ever compare like the larva count that's available, for a lot of players, like 5 minutes into the game at the pro level, you will see that they start getting a couple larvae here and there. Serral's just really freaking good at making a lot of stuff. Like, he's really good at just spending everything as quickly as he possibly can. And it's just a really difficult thing to do and a really difficult thing to achieve. Regardless, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Lambo is going to be one of those top-level contenders in the near future as well. Already, he's looking extremely strong, so I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. Now, obviously, this is Zerg vs. Zerg. I would be surprised if we're going to be seeing anything but Zergling Baneling action. In Europe, there are a lot of great Zerg players in particular. Obviously, when you, for example, want to qualify for a WCS event, you have to play a lot of Zerg vs. Zerg, just because there are a lot of professional Zerg players in Europe, more so than in the other regions of StarCraft. For example, in Korea, they've got a lot of Terran players and whatnot. But if you want to be great in Europe, you have to be great in Zerg vs. Zerg, and Serral is probably the greatest at ZVZ in the region. But there's no denying that Lambo is very strong at it as well. It's very difficult to get major advantages in Zerg vs. Zerg and then to, you know, close it out. Oftentimes at this level of play, you will see players just simply microing their Zerglings and Banelings so well that they don't really get a massive lead, and the lead will only really be more obvious once we get into the mid game. But lately there's been a lot of like late game ZVZ too, and I personally would love to see some of that. I've been seeing some weird games with like Brute Lord versus Brute Lords, right? Like, you can imagine exactly what that's like. It gets very messy. Anyway, a couple of Zerglings now for both parties moving across the map. Lambo is going to find his 3rd base under a little bit of pressure, but he's already sending over the Queen. That is going to be the Queen from the main. A 3rd one will be rebuilt, and now with Link Speed finishing up, this should be a relatively easy hold. Serral so far, though, not really showing us anything out of the ordinary either. Interestingly enough, at the pro level, a lot of players have been once again taking this after the 3rd, rather than the one over here. Not entirely sure what the reasoning for that is. I guess it's like, you know, you try to confuse your opponent with like a less than optimal setup just because they've got less practice, I guess, playing those kind of positions. I'm not entirely sure. I think in general the location over here is just a little bit easier to defend, but obviously if your opponent is not used to having your 3rd over there, it gets a little bit messier. You might just simply have a little bit more practice. It's these very minor advantages that can make a difference at this level. Already, double gas being taken here by Lambo. So he's going to go into the double, or rather into the +1 missile upgrade really quickly once more. Going up to the lair. Now this will be scouted here by Serral, which is really nicely done for him. And then finally the Roachborn. So rather greedy player by Lambo. It's sort of like, yeah, nice scout there once again actually as well by Lambo. It's like sort of both players have decided that they want to go ahead and just simply play a little bit more, you know, a little bit more safe. And they just sort of want to skip out the whole Zergling Baneling phase. It's like a gentleman's agreement in a way. They still make some Zerglings here and there, but since both of them know that they have got excellent Ling Bane micro, it's hard to really get an advantage there. So I guess they just sort of decide that it's going to be fair to just transition straight towards Roaches. Kind of funny how that works. Would not recommend playing this greedy if you play on the ladder. Unless your scouting is going to be as on point as well as both of these guys have been showcasing. But lairs are just about to finish up. It's funny how similar that that production tab has been. Once again, a Ling makes its way into the main base. Serral is going to check around, see if there's anything out of the ordinary. Lair was not quite finished yet though, so you won't be able to find any additional information. If there was, like, for example, Spire, that would be nicely done. Good micro once again there by Serral, not losing Zerglings to a big, or rather, not losing a big group of Zerglings to just a single one of those units. But look at the amount of scouting, right? Both players really on point with that. Really, really good with just simply sending the Lings in and getting that information, trying to pinpoint the advantages and the disadvantages that are having at this point in the game. Alrighty, so a second Evo Chamber has now been added on here by Lambo. There's actually a Dropper Lord coming up for him as well. I really like that. So I think that's going to be, yeah, indeed, 4 Banelings into the Dropper Lord. To set it off on a rally point, you don't really have to worry about it. It will eventually make its way across the map and you can do a bunch of damage with it. Nicely done. And now also an Overseer, by the way, coming up here for both players. So really a heavy amount of scouting. 4th hatchery now, though, once again being taken. That seemed to be the real advantage that Serral had in game number 1, right? Where he just continuously denied that 4th base from ever really going up. I wonder if Lambo is planning on making any significant changes here compared to game number 1. He does have a nice amount of economy, by the way. Lambo, that is. He's already sitting up to 68 harvesters right now, which is really nicely done. Where's that Dropper Lord at? Oh, here we go. The Dropper Lord is just making its way straight towards the 4th base. Question is, so this is hard to spot, right? What is Serral gonna do? Is he gonna respond to this? He does notice it right now, seconds before it dealing critical amounts of damage. No drones were lost just yet, and it looks like Serral just managed to defend that. Absolutely brilliant. Now, at the same time, he does get a push across the map as well. One of these Ravagers actually caught off guard, and they will get picked off immediately. Still, that's a lot of roaches here. Serral actually with a very substantial supply advantage. I think that's actually the drone count just simply going in his favor. Lambo, of course, does have the defender's advantage, so his units just simply spawn closer to the engagement once again. Great micro here so far, though, by Serral, really forcing his opponent to pull those workers right now, and that means a lot of drones end up dying. That's 11 workers already, 13 workers. And you see what I mean, right? What really set the players apart here? It wasn't anything, anything massive. Right? Even the base gets killed over here too with a couple Zerglings. But it wasn't anything massive. It was just the minor little advantages that Serral takes. He scouts extremely aggressively. And once he gets the information, once again, right? He gets the information in there. He's trying to figure out, hey, is there a lurker then? Is there a spire? Is there anything I have to worry about? Once he knows the information that he's looking for, he just continues making drones. And he barely makes any units until he's satisfied with the economy he has. It's a very small thing to pinpoint, because even though there really wasn't much of a clash, and even though Lambo is a top-tier competitor, somehow, some way, Serral got 20 supply ahead, right? And it's these little minor things that really add up over time. Right now, though, Lambo was forced to remake a lot of his workers. He is going to be able to obviously get those back up. Question is there going to be enough right now for Serral to finish this one out? He is smelling blood. He wants to end this game right here, right now. Once again, the drones coming off the line. All of those workers that were produced once again, they will actually get the surround now on some of those roaches as well, and they will be able to force some of those red roaches back. But there's no denying, right, that even though they managed to do so successfully once again, Serral continues building up that advantage. Once more, he's at 53 versus 67 workers in his advantage. Now, is he going to transition towards anything else? We do now see +2 finishing up here for both players. That second Evo Chamber is now getting +1 armor here as well. I'm curious to see if Lambo is planning to get another upgrade maybe in that Evo in a little bit, and whether or not he wants to go up towards the Hive. But I feel like if anyone can go up to a Hive right now, look at that little bit of patrolling here as well, making it hard to get the biles. I love it. He doesn't want to get biled, man. You don't want to get biled, so if you just simply put him up in a weird star pattern or something, it's hard to get that bile down. Anyways, the question is either of them going to transition towards Hive right now? So far, it doesn't look like that is really the case. Great following so far, by the way, by Lambo. Really staying in his game for a long time. Serral once again poking in, trying to figure out. Look how much scouting is going on, right? Isn't that sick? I feel like that's one of the key characteristics really of his play. He's really good at just simply figuring out what's going on. Like it's Zerglings and these speed overseers. He's probably going to remake an overseer as soon as he can. He's not going to just let that, scouting information go to waste. So right here we see Lambo following around the opposing army here with one of those overseers, which obviously is great as well, but he doesn't quite have the intel of the main base. He doesn't know if there's a hive, for example. Here we go once again. Second overseer actually joining in now for Serral. He wants to make sure that there's no like hidden base anywhere. Finally, we do see the fourth base getting retaken here by Lambo, but when it comes to fourth bases, right, Serral's been happily mining his for a very long time. Is he going to eat the biles? It looks like he will. Once again, Serral's moving forward, trying to see if he can close the game out right here, right now. There are a lot of roaches, though, for our player in blue as well. Lambo is still having that defender's advantage. He's also got a very solid amount of upgrades. One, actually, a carapace upgrade ahead of his opponent. So sure, he may be down a base, but he does have that upgrade lead, which is really, really nice. There you go. You can see a massive advantage there, right? Just one carapace upgrade and similarly sized battles between roaches, it is extremely potent. Now, Spire is coming up as well for Serral, so rather than going into the +1 armor upgrade, he's actually decided to go straight into the Spire instead. Very interesting decision there. I personally am quite surprised he decided to go with that. Obviously, he hasn't seen any kind of Hydralisk play or any kind of lurker switches coming up for his opponent, so the chances of there actually being a counter here for the Spire is interesting. There's not a lot of gas saved up right now. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you're going to see a fifth base either here or over there in just a little bit as well to really start building up that gas count. Obviously, it could also be used as like a greater Spire switch a little while later into the game. That's a massive amount of roaches, though. Roaches picking up whatever Ravagers they can. One Ravager does end up finding its grave here. Once again, though, there's a lot of roaches here available for our player in red, but supply-wise, Lambo is holding on. He's doing a great job. 6 mutas, though, coming out right now. They are completely unscouted. That's 7 mutas here in total. I think if he can snipe this base, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Ooh, a little bit of miss micro there, actually, by Serral. You see that? Little bit of indecisiveness. Ended up costing him quite a lot of units. He's remaking a lot of roaches right now, but that's definitely an advantage here for Lambo. The thing is, these mutas are going to spawn. They're already out. They are completely unscouted at this point. 5th base has now been taken. And while Serral is starting to lose the ground battle, he's definitely got a nice little superiority when it comes to the air units here instead. They're going to go immediately after these Ravagers. I'm assuming they are shift-clicked between all of them. Question is, though, is there going to be enough remaining here for Serral to hold on? Obviously, mutas are great. It will eventually clean all of this up, but there's no denying that the ground units can just sometimes force themselves through it. A Hydra Den now being constructed here as well for Lambo. He's going to try and see if he can counter those mutas using them, but so many reinforcing roaches now coming up for Serral. He's spawning literally on the battle, right? With this base over here, yeah, the contamination is going to slow down the larva production, I suppose, but Serral's literally reinforcing right on top of the engagement, and since once more, the 4th base was denied over and over and over again, it is Serral who's the one who obtains the victory here in game number 2. Alrighty, so here we go. Potential match point actually for our player spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Lost and Found LE. Very well played so far. Man, we got that Terran music in the background. I swear, if I would play Terran full-time, I'd probably just play with the in-game music continuously, just because this song is so good. It's the same for the Terran music from the original StarCraft. That is so good. It's like one of the most iconic video game songs of all time. The Terran 1 from StarCraft Brood War, or I guess StarCraft Original from 1998. So very good. But I feel like StarCraft 2's theme song like this, right? With the Terran pieces. It's so sick. Actually, back in the day, when StarCraft 2 first came out, you would not actually be able to hear any of the opposing music, I believe. If you were playing Zerg, for example, you wouldn't really hear the Terran music. These days, though, even with Zerg vs. Zerg, all of the music is just simply randomized, and sometimes we get these really sick songs. Rather than just the sad, depressing tunes of the Zerg vs. Zerg, we get some nice music here in the background as well with that sweet guitar. Anyways, curious to see if Lambo is going to be faced here at all, right? He tried playing like a normal game in game number 1 or 2. I think that's probably one of the things that he's very well known for. He's very good at just simply playing this, very macro-focused style. He doesn't really cheese very often. I guess the same can really be said for Serral as well, but so far he's tried doing that twice in a row, and it looks like Serral was just simply overpowering him. Right? And it's very hard, once again, to pinpoint why exactly Serral ends up winning those games. Everything is just a tiny little bit better. It's as if you're improving from, I don't know, say Diamond League to Master League. People in Diamond League have a really a good understanding of the game, but if you want to break into Masters, everything has to be a little bit more refined. And that's kind of what this feels like in a way. Because up to this point, we've seen great player, obviously, from Lambo. He's got that upgrade advantage, and I really like that part of his build order. But every time he falls behind economically, and Serral just doesn't allow him to build it up. And then eventually, when the main base and the natural start running low, right, like 10, 12 minutes into the game, and there's no fourth base taken, it's very difficult to actually close the game out. Anyway, I secretly hope that Lambo is going to continue playing the same style, because so far, I'm curious to see if he can bring this back and maybe play it just a little bit better. I feel like if he gets the fourth base up and running and he gets the double upgrades, once the inevitable fight between the roaches hits, he's going to be in a really good spot economically, and then he can obviously push that upgrade advantage that he's been trying to establish for so very long. I'm actually secretly going to keep an eye out as well on that production tab to see exactly at what time both of these players decide to take their Evo. I wonder if it's just because of Lambo taking the second Evo a little bit quicker. That's why he gets that upgrade leader, or because he gets like the first evolution chamber so much earlier as well. Bailing Nest now though, coming up once again for Serral. This is the gold standard. If you are looking to play a quote-unquote normal Zerg versus Zerg, you should probably look into Serral's builds. They are absolutely as standard as can be. He doesn't really cut any corners. He doesn't really take a lot of risks, although obviously you have to do the scouting as actively as he is doing, and it's very difficult to do so, obviously. But he's been doing a great job to simply, you know, playing something that most people should be able to copy straight up as well. Obviously, the Ling Bane micro, though, that's something much harder to copy. There's no special trick there when it comes to StarCraft 2 micro. All you need to do is just do it 1,000 times and then do it another 1,000 times. So there we go. Bailing Nest actually skipped right now for Lambo. He's going to go for the 330 Roach Warren here instead. So he's got a pretty decent amount of workers here as well. So far, just sitting off of a single gas. Nicely scouted there, though. Serral immediately figuring out what's going on. One Zergling just simply ran for its life there, and while it did end up passing away, the Roach Warren was spotted. Very important thing. So immediately now a Roach Warren taken here for Serral, a little bit quicker than we previously saw him do so. He's now also once again, like he's sending links across the map all the time, right? So nice. I guess he's trying to figure out how much eco there is going to be at this third base. And while the scouting links of the player in blue were killed here, Serral Zergling is still alive. Look at that, making a victory lap. He's like, okay, there's no workers there at the third base. He does see a couple spawning right now, so he knows that his opponent is not going all in, and immediately he queues up 6 drones. Right? It's these little minor things that look very minor, but in the grand scheme of things, they add up very, very quickly. So I think this is mostly just a skip from Lambo here, trying to just skip the Ling Bane style and going straight into roaches. Obviously, what was another option for him was to go for like a big all-out assault with roaches, which sometimes can catch the opponent off guard as well. But Serral figured out what's going on. He's been responding accordingly. And now, with both players once again transitioning towards a lair and Evo chambers or whatnot coming up, we saw them going down right around the same time as the lair here. Both players are going to be able to transition towards that nice Roach Ravager mid-game very, very comfortably. And while I know a lot of people are not necessarily massive fans of ZVZ, in comparison to, for example, like Zerg versus Terran, or like Terran versus Protoss, or Protoss versus Zerg, obviously there's a lot less variety, but I personally love seeing these subtle little differences that people make. And since obviously it's a very grindy matchup, right, where players have just done it thousands of times and the games look very similar in a lot of those scenarios, you can see these really minor differences making a big outcome near the end of the game. So far this has been a pretty nice back and forth game. Spire coming up here for Lambo. So I think that may very well be the reason why he decided to skip out the Bailing Nest. He's now also going straight into that fourth base much quicker. He took all of his gases already, so the Spire Roach style definitely could deal a bunch of damage. There's no knowledge right now just yet for Serral. Now once again, he keeps sending forward the Zerglings. Will he figure out? Oh well, just seeing the drone pool, I guess, is big enough, although he did not quite get the scout there. At the same time, Lambo Zergling's actually going after that fourth base. Fourth base will not be killed for now here. Serral once again trying to do the same here on the other side of the map as well. A couple of roaches are relatively nearby. I think they should be able to deflect these links without them really getting any kind of critical information here. But here comes that Overseer, right? So the Spire is just about to finish up. The Spire is just about to finish. There we go. Serral will figure this out. Perfect timing here as well, because right now if he wants to, he can respond. Curious to see what he's gonna do against this. Hydra then comes down immediately, okay. And I think he's just gonna continue making roaches for now and maybe go for the counterattack. That's 8 Mutalisks though coming up here for Lambo, and I like this a lot better. So in the previous games, it was very much so Serral who was the one who got to decide how the game worked. In this game, it is a lot more about Lambo leading the pace. So I would like him to be in this scenario and see how he does. That's most of the games actually I've seen him win. He's very good at playing this passive style, but I don't know if you can really pull that off against someone of the caliber of Serral. There we go. So the mutas do a couple of things, right? They can do a huge amount of damage to the opposing player's economy, but more importantly, they provide map control. You can kill all of those scouting overlords and just simply make it very hard to figure out for your opponent what the follow-up is going to be. Plus, positioning all of a sudden becomes a lot more difficult as well, right? Zerglings can run in everywhere, and if your roaches are out of position, it's very difficult to defend. These mutas provide you with map control and with a way of just simply controlling the map. Right now, for example, if you look at the vision here for our player in blue, it's absolutely phenomenal, whereas Serral is sort of tucked away in his bottom left-hand corner, and he knows about very, very little. So that scouting that really has been pushing Serral ahead is not going to be nearly as impressive this time around. Still, Serral obviously with the superior army here, he's going to be able to go into the +2 here as well as the Hydras. Hydra's absolutely phenomenal against both roaches as well as, of course, Mutalisk. So this is going to be an interesting one. There are a couple of sport crawlers taken right now as well. Lambo looks like he's actually planning to go for a big engagement. Not entirely sure how this one is going to pay off. Nice biles so far though by our player in blue, damaging and softening up a lot of those red roaches as well. Still, defender's advantage is absolutely massive. Serral getting a lot of units out. Lambo though, the one with the supply advantage right now as well. Those mutas still dealing a lot of damage in the back. Beautifully done here by our player in blue. The Hydras eventually are cleaned up though, and while, yeah, there are still some units here available on the ground, I don't think Lambo is really going to be able to push this one. But look at that supply. It's very, very significant. The Queen's helping out, obviously, too. Those mutas eventually will be picked off. Still, Serral's reinforcing with a lot of army. +2 is now finishing up, too, which is nicely done. That actually gives him a nice upgrade lead. And upgrades, oftentimes in maxed out engagements, are extremely important. But still, that force from Lambo does not mess around. Here we go. Once again, corrosive balls landed. Beautiful micro so far by Serral, really keeping a lot of those units alive. Both players microing to the best of their abilities. Couple of the biles from Serral are landing on the blue roaches here, and they're reinforcing units. Even though that the army supply count is not nearly as impressive, the reinforcing units are actually still dealing a lot of damage. Beautiful biles there actually by Lambo, getting some value, but it looks as if he is going to be on the retreat. And obviously right now, right, with those mutas out of the sky, it looks like once again Serral is going to be the one who gets to decide the pace of the game, if he wants to, that is. Obviously, he could go for the counter-attack right now, but that was honestly a really impressive hold. For a little bit there, it looks like Lambo was going to push through, but just simply having those units spawn closer to the engagement, and as soon as they spawn, those units walking towards the fight, it just simply was barely not enough there for Lambo to obtain the victory. If this map was slightly smaller, I think he would have been able to just use his reinforcements a little bit effectively, but now we are once more transitioning towards a much more macro-focused game. Alrighty, and the one advantage that Serral does have right now is that not only is he an upgrade up, he's got himself that Hydra den already, right? And the Hydras obviously go well together with a lot of this kind of style. Contamination is another one of those additions that we've been seeing a lot more over the last few months. It's cool. Both players in this game have actually been doing it. I actually wouldn't mind seeing some Burrow Roach play here either. I think Burrow Roach would be phenomenal right now, actually, for both players. There is now a Lurker Den coming up. Lurker Den, obviously a pretty big investment, but since Serral is already maxed out, it is going to be relatively safe. But now the roaches are moving forward towards that unsuspecting 4th base. Not a lot of defenses here available for our player in blue. He's desperately trying to scramble back right now, but that 4th base is already dead. There we go, the bile's raining down, and that means that once more, the 4th base has been denied. The battle for bases, that's kind of what it feels like so far. Lambo finally coming up with a really nice and potent looking counterattack. A couple of the Ravagers now actually caught out on the map as well. They ended up canceling the 4th or the 5th base there, but at the same time, right, the roaches are dealing a lot of damage. Now, rather than going after the economy over here, Serral decides to just simply evacuate the drones towards the 3rd, and this does mean that Lambo is going to be forced to, I guess now, sack his roaches on killing a roach warren? I am not sold on that one. Obviously, there's already a Hydra Den out as well. Lurkers are just about to finish up. I do not mind this position here at all for Serral. He's maxed out. He's going to be able to just remake a Roach Warren. It doesn't take that long to build. And what looked to be a really potent timing attack there by Lambo, it could have actually killed the base, I'm pretty sure. He decided to try and go for economy instead, and then he just simply got caught off. And, you know, the similar looking hit squad there from Serral, it ended up killing 2 bases. That hurts. That hurts a lot. So, 4th base being rebuilt right now. 5th base already coming up here for Lambo. We already obviously see a 5th base here as well for Serral in the top left-hand corner of the map. But here we go. Once again, big engagement. Hydras this time around joining in as well. Nice little upgrade advantage here, though, so far for... actually, neither player really having the upgrade advantage right now. Lambo did get himself +1 armor that just finished up, which is really nicely done. We see the same actually happening right now for Serral. That does mean, though, that Lambo has got himself a really solid amount of units, but there is that lurker. Those lurkers soften up units like no tomorrow, and at this point, yeah, once you see the spines coming out of the ground... at this point, it's very difficult to close it out if you are Lambo. And once again, Serral holds on by the skin of his teeth, but every time he does, he gets more and more ahead. Lurker then are coming up here as well for Lambo. He obviously does have that nice little tech advantage. Neither player going up to the +2 armor upgrade. Obviously, that upgrade is relatively expensive. There's a single mute out here in the top left-hand corner being a nuisance. Couple roaches going in for the run-by as well. I love this. Looks like this is actually quite a vulnerability here for Serral. He's been losing a lot of workers on this side here. Well, I guess with a lot, I mean, well, the first 3 right now, but he's been losing a lot of, I guess, movement over in this area. But now with this many lurkers out, right, and really no counters available for those lurkers other than corrosive biles, I kind of would like it if Serral decides to just go for a push. He remade the drones that he lost. But look at the lurkers. Oh, man, there's so many of them. Nice biles there, though. That's the one downside, obviously, with lurkers. They need a little bit of setup time, and they are not very mobile at all. Corrosive biles can deal a huge amount of damage. Beautiful biles there as well. Killing that chasing overseer, or I guess that was an overlord. Nicely done. This micro obviously tricky from both sides. Lambo trying not to overextend, but at the same time, Serral sent a small hit squad here of roaches towards the top right-hand corner of the map, and now he's gonna use the time that he's creating to actually try and set up shop once again, and he may actually be looking to take the main engagement. Close call there by Lambo. He could have been in a world of hurt, but what he has done right now, Serral that is, right? He secured himself 2 bases once again. Sure, that little counterattack over here got cleaned up, and that's not too amazing, but he used that time that he created to put the lurkers in position, and then to go after the 4th, and then once again, I guess, the 5th base as well. Beautiful movement here, and while, sure, these lurkers will end up dying, 2 lurkers at the expense of a single base, I think that's a trait that Serral would like to take every day of the week. At the same time, a big chunk of Roach Ravager trying to go for the counterattack, but already reinforcing lurkers are waiting. They're smiling on the ground, right? They're ready to try and take out that army. Lambo is trying his very best, though. He's doing a great job, but I feel like at this point so far, in most of the series, he's been getting outclassed, right? This is definitely not game over yet. He can easily still win this one, obviously, but he doesn't really have the army that his opponent has, and not really the economy either. But it's just, there's just so much stuff here for Serral. And once again, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what makes him so strong. If you got an idea of as to why that is, let me know down below in the comment section. Because it indeed does look like Serral, once again, takes a dominating lead. And he's the one who ends up winning this series in a 3-0 fashion. Phenomenal. Really well done. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the love. But I'll see you once again in the next video.